Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escoffier Online. Welcome to our live session this morning. Today we're going to be exploring royal icing. We're going to be making the icing itself, and then I'm going to be demonstrating a few decorations that you can use the royal icing for. What's really nice about this icing is it dries completely hard, and it's great for making flowers and leaves and other types of decorations in advance, and then you can apply them to your cakes or cupcakes at another time. The royal icing is also great for putting together gingerbread houses and things like that because it dries hard, it's so stable, and it's so lasting. So knowing all that, let's get started. So I've got my powdered sugar, which I sifted ahead of time, and a little bit of cream of tartar. The cream of tartar helps lighten this, and it also helps with the drying too. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding egg whites to this cream of tartar and sugar mixture that I made. I just put maybe a quarter or eighth of a teaspoon of cream of tartar in here. There's not a lot. And I'm using a pasteurized egg white, which you can buy in the grocery store. It's available in all grocery stores. Just check for it. Buy your eggs. Sometimes it's above the shelled eggs on top. We're going to be using a pasteurized egg white because we're not cooking this. We're just going to be making our icing, and then we're going to pipe it and leave it dry out. There are also a lot of other recipes for the royal icing, which you'll find when you start exploring things a little bit more. And some of them are calling for meringue powder, and then water is added to the mix. It's basically the same thing as adding the egg white. So keep that in mind. Let me know if you have any questions. Just give me a call or send me an email. So let's go ahead and get started with our icing. I'm going to be pouring my egg whites into my sugar and cream of tartar slowly as it's mixing, and then we're going to whip it up until it turns a little lighter in color. So kind of put it on low speed. Be careful when you're doing this. And this icing is going to have a cheese paste-like consistency, and that's kind of a telltale sign when you're going to know that it's ready. No worries, if your icing is a little too thick, just add a little bit more egg white. If it's a little too thin, then just add a little bit more powdered sugar. In time, you're going to learn to tell if it's the proper consistency. So we're just going to leave this mix a little bit, and then I'll be scraping it down, and then we're going to whip it up. I'm going to check to make sure it's the right consistency. It's looking really good. It's going to kind of come together slowly, and it's just going to kind of have this drab color in the beginning, and it's going to be a little loose, and then in the whipping, that's where we're going to get the cheese paste-like consistency. So I always use that for an example because that's kind of an everybody thing, and you can tell when it's done. So please let me know if you have any questions. And we're just going to be kind of pushing this powdered sugar down a little bit into that kind of well that we've made. So once these ingredients are incorporated, I'm going to turn the mixture up a little bit, and that's where the whipping is going to come in. If you have a little powdered sugar on the side, don't worry, it's going to fall in there, or it's going to kind of get swooped up by the egg whites. So we're going to go ahead and whip this. Usually whips for maybe a minute or two. You can see it's, like I said, it's that drab color, and it's going to be turning light, and it's going to have a cheese paste type of consistency. I didn't put any vanilla in here, but you can go ahead and use a clear vanilla. That's great to use. Any extract, I recommend clear, and this way it'll be nice and white for your flowers or your decorations, whatever you're going to be using. You can use a little bit of orange, almond, or even lemon, or perhaps maybe some coconut extract too. So definitely put a little extract in here. So we're going to leave this whip a little bit more. It's looking really good. You can tell that it's becoming the proper consistency because some of that drabness is kind of going away because you're aerating it and you're turning it lighter. The same thing that happens when you're whipping your buttercream icing, when you start out, it's got that yellowness, and through aerating it becomes lighter, fluffier. So it's looking really good. We're going to let this go a little bit longer, and then we're going to be making some decorations, and I've got some that I made last night. They dried out real nice, and I'm going to show you those too. So super easy to make. This is a really good thing to make in your bake shop in case you're busy with cakes, and maybe you have a bake shop that you have maybe a lot of cakes for the weekend. You can make some of your flowers ahead of time and then just decorate them, put your flowers on. It's also great too if you don't have a lot of skillful decorators. You can do some of the prep work ahead of time. So this is looking great. It's turning lighter in color. As you can see, it's kind of a toothpaste-like consistency, and it's almost ready. When you're making this, if you pull it off the mixer, you're working with it and it seems to loosen up a little bit. Before you add more powdered sugar right away, go ahead and put it back on the mixer and let it whip a little bit more and see if it's the right consistency for you. So it's looking great. We're just going to give it just a little bit more. It's nice and well aerated. It became lighter in color. You can see it's starting to get a little thicker as well. So it's just about ready, and we're going to be pulling it off, and we'll be ready to use the icing. Okay, it looks perfect. It's a nice consistency. Like I said, it's kind of this toothpaste-like consistency. This is what you're going to be looking for. It's kind of holding its shape, and when you touch it, it's tacky still, but it's holding its shape. So what we're going to do is, for our royal icing, I've made some earlier and I've added some color to it, and that's what we're going to use for our decorations. I use the paste colors and the liquid paste colors. You can use the regular liquid food coloring, the type that you typically buy in the grocery store, but if you're going to be adding a lot of color, it's going to thin this down a little bit. So I recommend the paste or the liquid paste colors. This is going to get hard. And we've seen gingerbread houses. This is what holds them together. So when you're working on your decorations or your piping, whatever you're doing, keep this covered with a damp cloth. And if you're working on it for some time, make sure that your cloth stays damp. So let's go ahead and set this aside, and we're going to take a look at some decorations. And please let me know if you have any questions on anything. Okay, so we're just going to be doing some piping on some parchment. So I've got some cutout squares here that I made earlier. We'll use those for some flowers, but let's go ahead and do a little bit of piping on this parchment. So I've got some colors that I made earlier, and I'm keeping my bags in a damp cloth. I'm keeping the tip under the cloth, and then this way it's not going to get hard on you and you'll have more fluid piping. Keep that in mind too, that you've always got to keep this icing covered when you're working with it, whether it's in the bowl or if it's already in the bag. So I've got my rose tip here, and we're just going to make some simple rosette decorations. Little 3-petal right on the parchment here. So I'm doing 1, 2, and then I'm going across and making the third one. So my parchment is sliding around a little bit, so I'm going to tack this down with a little bit of icing in the corners. This also works well when you're doing cookies and shoe paste. I definitely recommend this, and you can also pipe this on a silpat if you like. Okay, so let's do just a little bit more piping. So I'm doing 3 petals. I'm doing 1 and 2, and then 1 over the front. And I'm doing 1 and 2, and then 1 over the front. So super cute little rosette. These are going to dry out perfectly, and we'll be able to pick them up. I've got a leaf tip with some green color that I made, and I'm just going to do a little bit of leaf piping on my flower. And what I'm going to do too is I'm going to make some extra leaves. And then I can put these on any cake or cupcake that I'm making too. And please let me know if you have any questions, if I can answer anything for you. Okay, so I've got some pink that I made earlier too. And what we can do with the pink, it's great for making hearts. So what we can do is we can just pipe the heart so simply. By just 2 little teardrops. And you can intersect together at the bottom. Okay. When you're using this icing, it's a little thick, so you're going to want to make sure that your bag is not too full. Otherwise, you're going to have some shakiness. I had a little too much icing in my bag, so I just kind of squeezed a little bit of it out. So let's go ahead and make some more heart shapes. What we can do is we can do the outline of the heart. Maybe we'll make 2 of these. If you're not so good at this, you can put a piece of paper under your parchment with the heart drawn on it, like with a black Sharpie, and you can use that as a pattern. Or if you're going to do a diamond shape or something like that. Okay, so I've got 2 simple hearts. And what I'm going to be doing is filling them in. I'm doing kind of a little bit of a filigree here. Just a little bit of a filling is going to give it a very decorative effect. So I'm not really using a pattern, it's just a little bit of a scroll. And definitely try this, you'll really like it. See, super pretty, and we're going to be able to pick these up when we're done with them. You're going to want to, when you're doing this filigree, you're definitely going to want to have it attached to each other or to the side. And that's going to help with any breakage. Okay, so 2 super simple decorations, really easy to make, some things that you've probably already done with buttercream. So let's go ahead and look at some flowers that we're going to be making. The first one I'm going to show you is the daisy, and you're going to want to do this on maybe a rose nail like the one that I have. This is a larger one because I'm going to be making a little bit bigger daisy. So I have, once again, I have my rose tip. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be piping my petals, and I'm using the wide end out. That's the outside of the petal of the daisy. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be piping my petal, and for some layering effect, I'm leaving a little bit of room between the petals because I'm going to pipe another petal on the inside. And please let me know if you have any questions. No worries about the center. You can always clean that up a little bit. I have a little bit of icing on the end there that was getting a little hard. So be mindful of that. If you're not getting a smooth pipe, you might want to wipe your tip off a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going right in between. And then I just have a real simple daisy. It's like super easy to make. And what you can do is just, you know, with your damp finger, you can kind of press down any little loose ends in the center. And we're going to be covering this with the inside of the daisy with just a little bit of orange. You can also do different colors. You can make your daisies in different colors. Then this just gets slid right off the nail, and you can put it on the tray with some of your other flowers. And you're going to leave it dry overnight. If your climate is more humid, these are going to take longer to dry, but when it's very dry in the wintertime, they're going to dry a lot faster. So please let me know if you have any questions on your flowers. And you can also do some piping with a little bit of a flower tip where you're just going to pipe and twist. And I'm always anchoring these papers down first before I start. So this is just a flower tip. It's rather large, and I'm going to be piping, but I'm not going to be touching the tip to the bottom and of the nail here. So I'm just going to be, my parchment's curling up. If that does that, you can just easily turn it over a little bit. It'll do that if you have a little bit of water on there. Okay, so you're not going to hold your tip all the way down to the bottom here. You're going to have it up a little bit. And what you're going to do is squeeze and turn. And then have a nice little flower. This one's standing up a little bit. We can press it down. Let's go ahead and make another couple of these. Get a little practice. So even if they're not perfect, they're still going to be pretty on your cakes. So we're going to squeeze and turn. And we'll go ahead and press that down a little bit in the center for a little bit of smoothness. I'll just kind of dampen my finger a little bit on my towel. So let's go ahead and make one more. I'm going to squeeze and turn. So it's super pretty color. You can make these in a variety of colors. And this too is also going to get a center. And like I said, if they're not perfect, our flowers in nature are not perfect either. So no worries. And you can kind of push these little petals down and a little bit off to the side too. So just do some practicing. You'll have a lot of fun. You'll definitely be sure to impress your friends and family. This flower is going to get a center too. Okay, and if you have any ends, you can smooth them down. You could do this with a damp paintbrush too. Okay, so there's some super simple examples of some flowers and a few decorations with the hearts. These are going to be set aside to dry overnight, and like I said, if it's humid, it may take a little bit longer. So let's look at some that I made earlier. Okay, so these have completely dried and I can so easily pick them up on the parchment. You may have to do a little bit of peeling and they just come up so easy and they're ready to be placed on a cake. So I've got my hearts too, super cute, nice and hard. The filigrees, they turned out beautifully. Just kind of peel those off as well. Just be careful when you're peeling these off. If you're doing these for a party, make sure the more delicate things like the filigree and perhaps the daisies, make some extras in case you have breakage. And then these small flowers, they just peel right off of here. So they're super easy to store too. And the daisies are going to peel off the same way. Just kind of be careful with these. I'm not squeezing the flower itself. I'm just kind of carefully peeling the parchment. And I'm kind of going around. It's a little stuck in the center. That's where it was a little thicker. And if you see this coming off, the icing coming off at all on the parchment, that means it's not quite dry. Your parchment should be pretty clean. Just a little bit of the icing residue. So just kind of take your time taking these off because you spend a lot of time making them, so you want to take your time taking them off. Especially these bigger ones like the daisies and the filigrees. They're a little more fragile and you'll have to be a little more gentle. So you're just kind of going around. Take these daisies off and then we're going to do some piping on a cake that I prepared earlier with our royal icing. Let's go ahead and take this last daisy off. Like I said, I'm not squeezing, I'm just holding it and I'm just carefully pulling the parchment. So it might be just, since I made these last night, they've only had the night to dry, so it might be a little bit damp. That's why it's sticking a little bit, or it could be from the thickness. So please let me know how you're doing with your royal icing decorations. I'm curious to hear. Okay, good. All right, so I've got a cupcake too before we pull out the cake. And you can so easily put your filigree heart on one of these cupcakes, and it's just going to give it more dimension. You can kind of stand it up, maybe put a little flower, kind of unpeel one of these. Maybe we'll put one of our daisies back there too in the background. So it's super easy, beautiful decoration for your cupcake, especially for the Mother's Day holiday coming up. It just gives it so much dimension when you're able to stand something up in your cakes or cupcakes. So keep this in mind. And let's go ahead and put some of these decorations off to the side. And I've got a cake that I made earlier. So I covered my cake with fondant, and fondant is great for a surface to pipe your royal icing on. Buttercream with royal icing, sometimes the icing is not going to dry, and it could bleed as well depending on what kind of buttercream you're using, especially if you're using a Swiss buttercream with egg whites, a lot of liquid. You probably don't want to pipe some royal icing onto that, but the fondant is perfect surface and it can dry nicely. So another thing that the royal icing is great for is drop strings that you can do using your royal icing. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple here. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm attaching this, and then I'm going to be dragging and dropping my string. And that's what that looks like. That's how you get that smoothness. And it's kind of, very fluid looking. And you can't always do that with buttercream. So if you're seeing this type of drop string work, it's most likely made out of royal icing. Okay, so this is something that is going to take a little bit of practice to do, but I highly recommend practicing this skill. You'll be very happy that you learned it. Okay, so I'm just carefully dropping my string. And occasionally these do break, but you can easily pull them off. If you're noticing that they're not attaching to the cake, make sure that you're pressing them down. You could use maybe a damp paintbrush or just tap your finger a little bit, and there's a little bit more of the drop string work. So let's make a couple more. So it's super beautiful, very elegant, these drop strings on the cake. And you'll be sure to impress your friends and family. And please let me know if you have any questions on royal icing. Let me know how yours is turning out. Here's a few more drop strings. Super beautiful. You can also do a little bit of dotting with the icing too on the cake. That works out really nice. We're going to go ahead and finish up the cake. We'll put a couple of decorations on here, and then we'll have a really nice cake. And please let me know too what kind of things that you've made with royal icing. I know that probably a lot of you have already used royal icing. It might not be new to you, so I'd like to hear what you've done with royal icing, or perhaps you could even post some of your pictures on the forum. And we do have a contest going on, and it's for making gluten-free desserts. So please join in on the contest if you need any help. Maybe converting a recipe, a favorite recipe, to gluten-free. Be sure to let me know. I can help you out with that. We're going to go ahead and finish our drop string work. Our cake is looking super elegant. And it doesn't appear that any of our strings have broken yet, so this is good. Okay, you'll be sure to dazzle your friends and family with your drop string work. So what you're going to want to do too, where the strings kind of come together, you're going to want to maybe put a little dot or a little teardrop to kind of give it that finished appearance. And please let me know if you need any help with any of this. I'm just kind of alternating and doing a little bit of a dot and a teardrop. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put some of our flowers on. We'll attach them with the royal icing. It's a good thing to do, especially if the cake's going to be transported. Okay, great. So we have a nice finished cake. Super beautiful. Let's go ahead and grab some of these flowers and we'll put them on our cake. Okay, I've got the dried flowers that I made earlier. And I'm going to be attaching them with a little bit of the white royal icing. So I'm just going to be piping a little bit of icing on the cake. That's going to kind of help stick the flowers on. So I'm just peeling them off my parchment. And these two, kind of be a little gentle when you're handling them. Try not to squeeze these. You can break them easily. So, just finishing up, we've got a couple of extra leaves. And we'll put our filigree in the center. Nice, beautiful touch on the cake. We'll put a couple of our hearts too. You can kind of stand this up, kind of pressing it in a little bit. Kind of stand our daisy up a little bit there too. I've got some leaves that I made along with my decorations. Okay, we're getting ready to wrap up. Please let me know if you have any questions and definitely how you're doing with your royal icing, and have a lot of fun with the contests going on. Let me know how you're doing, and thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.